Everybody, it's Jess, your go-to YouTube dance commentator, and we're here taking a look at the round one of the IDL 2026 Vancouver series. We have all of the matchups. I'm really happy that Brotherhood was able to upload their wide view of their first round so we can actually do this. We're going to go through, talk about each team after giving a wide cam watch. I also have the score sheet pulled up to kind of do a little bit more of a comparison, understanding, focusing, gives us more of a rubric to focus on with the respective groups, and of course, celebrating dance and the art of it in a professional league context. I'm ready. I hope you are. Let's go. First matchup, Royal versus 1 Mil.
Chicks up, put your dicks up, put your rates up for the princess. I get money, I'm a star. I get money, I'm a star.
Okay, and 1 Mil. Okay, let's look at the score sheet. Well, I'm going to kind of talk through it. So something that I'm noticing, complexity leaned a smidgen more to 1 mil, which I found surprising because I would think, well, they're close. We'll put it that way. They're close. Staging, a smidgen more to 1 mil. That I understand. Musicality, a smidgen more to 1 mil. Creativity is a little bit more to 1 mil. That would also make sense in the content. Athletics, 8.5 versus 7.5. Cleanliness, royal family, yep, checks out there. Authenticity, those are close. Spacing, royal, absolutely. Not only were they the highest in the round, they were the highest in the whole Vancouver series. And remember what I said about New York? I said that that's something they're going to be known for, that they do very well is spacing. So I love that. That's the toughest component to get right for stages. So they're doing really good there. Projection, interesting to see there. Stamina, there's more of a stamina for royal. It's interesting how the projection and the stamina are opposed, like the opposing sides, because a lot of times you would see those go hand in hand to a degree. So when I say this was a very close match, it absolutely was. I would still stand that based on the categories that we have, I would lean more to royal family in their structure, but not by a large margin. We are going to chat about them, overview of course, but like I've said, if you are a member of these teams or a leadership representative of the teams, let me specify there, please let me know if you want more details. I got you. So from the top here, I like the projection. Most improved award from New York to here is going to be royal. Absolutely. Great projection. They've already syncopated. They've already showcased a ton of levels in depth to the choices that they've brought so far going into... Oh, hold on, freeze. Yeah, it is interesting how they... We'll get to that, actually. So you're seeing me verbally process right now. They project out the wazoo in the beginning, but does it match at the end? Possibly not. I like the tension, the speed changes, the dynamics are really nice. Notice that we're consistently playing around with levels. They're doing very well. And the opposition of directions is really helpful too. The running is really fun. Come on, Moana. She's a very good job on everybody matching, which I really appreciate because that's something that you notice with both teams. Every team, I think, to a degree experiences this, where you have somebody, depending on the feature moment, that really stands out. I personally think you run a risk every time you have them stand out too much because it showcases weaknesses on your projection. So that's well, we're gonna get to that though. I love this. I love the little blunt moment. Now I'm not really a smoker in that way at all. I do think that not spacing, but the actual formations here could be just a smidgen cleaner in the columns. But I think they're doing pretty decent. I really love the dynamic of the speed change on that. It's really nice. And I like the switch off there. Very clear with the drop down. That was really nice. The isolation of the hips are great as a transition. They're doing very well on that. They're also keeping the formations pretty balanced. And then I love that we have our feature happening here, and then you have the background environmental members also helping through opposition of direction, but justifying the same level. So I thought that was really fun. Then you have the different level there. There's your princess. You have your crowns up. It's fun. The accent, so they're doing the front, they're doing the back, and they drop low. And then I like the hinge over with the speed change. And then having your Asian member do this, I actually find to be really tasteful because it comes across as respectful, right? Just like the song's intended to be like respectful as well, right? I think that's your Japanese member, which makes it kind of fun. So I really like the feature intention here, right? So the hop, I like the bounce on it. I would say they're pretty creative on their placements on the environmental holds. I really like. And what I mean by environmental, it's the groups that are not having the features or the focal points within it. So they push it up. Oh, that's really nice. You have that star. Complexity of choreography. Obviously, in the beginning, we have a ton of complexity. We started to repeat starting in this section. So I do see that as why one mill could have gotten a little bit more of an edge. I love how it starts with one person, then it joins into a second person feature. Then everybody is technically doing the choreo, they're just dropped a level. Arm swing, you notice it's repeating, repeats equal risks. We're going to get to other teams that also experience that, but it's through a different type of, speed change or different BPM choices. We talked about that with Jam Republic, actually, about the round 2. So I like that. So we have the chest. It's more of a fingerprint catering to what we saw in the very beginning. Love our feature moment here. Looks like our hips are accented there. We drop, drop, drop. Okay. I'm also trying to look here about styles like stylistic athleticism and technique and authenticity. We have a lot of hybrid on this. I know that this is Paris's track. Do they get bonus points for dancing on a Paris's track? No. Do I think that if you know about Paris and of course it's hard to, let me rephrase this. Most people, if you know Royal Family, you know that Paris is, the head honcho that incepted it and the whole hierarchy of the different groups and things. So, but not everybody would know that this is her track, right? And we're going to get into those things of what should the judges, what are they obligated to know going in and what do they not have to know in order for them to be a good judge in the space. I know there's a round where we're going to get to, it's the Brotherhood GRV that we're going to discuss about that exact point, but I would say we could talk about it here too. The judges are not obligated to know that Paris is involved in this track, and this is her track, to where that their movements and our choices cater to that. Will it help in your creativity? Possibly. It can help in your fans watching as well, but the judges are not obligated to have to know that. So I want to be very clear there. The tray sound is fun. The punches with the head accent is really nice. The projectile low. This was really nice with the hinge back is nice. This absolutely, does it come across as a dig to 1 mil? 1 mil absolutely used a ton of isolations and these back hinges. And they rotate it through. The chest is fun. Accent through. That is a very, what is it? This little tap. Very Royal Family coded movement. I can see that associate to, referencing who your artist is, and that's a very notable choice. I like the rotation around. Come on, body roll with the hinge back. Dancers are coming in, and then they knock it. Really nice. Now, this move here, that absolutely reminds me of the Imniki, right? It's a social dance we've seen and incorporates the Amapiano, Afro beats, kind of realm of social side of social media. Now, with this is my example I'm going to give, number 15, freaking bodies this. Does it cause potential openings of opportunity to where others may not be able to present as much? Possibly. Accent through. This is not the cleanest section. They present the hits, they knock it, that's really nice. The hair is fun. Now this crawl through, we've talked through, that's like a transition. Looks it, she knocks it. I like the flick up is cool. The traces are cool. We switch up the timings through it. They rotate around, they knock, they drop low. And then really nice, I would say, stamina. Okay, them getting stamina, it absolutely checks out because they have not dropped in energy at all. The hop hop, but I could see how some of their sections, like the star section, you could drop on projection a bit because of the types of movements and what you're choosing to justify on the track. And then we have the chest, fun accent there. The punches are great. Chest rotation's really nice there as well. And then we end up having a nice, little rotation going on with the hips, making that a fun point. We do end up seeing a sequence like that similarly to earlier on in the set, but it was more accented. They drop it down. Great levels there. We hit, and she comes up with a fun finish. Projection for sure. They're definitely going to be a team that knows how to project, and they know how to maintain their stamina consistently. I would say their spacing, they're going to be the team to beat on spacing. I've said that from New York. I'm going to continue to say that here. It does not surprise me at all that they scored the highest there. I do think their spacing could have improved a little bit in some of the sections, but it doesn't take away from the fact that they're really, really good at it, right? I would say with cleanliness, they are the point difference in cleanliness, I 1,000% agree with. It's a 9.17 to Royal Family and 8.33 with 1 mil. I this routine is significantly cleaner than 1 mil, but what 1 mil chooses to do is they supplement cleanliness for projection. And you notice that with their choices, with how their costume is being affected, by how they're executing their movements. And there are a couple things in this set that we are going to talk about specifically on the safety of it. There was a kip up, I think, that happened here that wasn't my favorite type of execution. It just happens. I don't know if that's just how we've been doing it, but it's circumstance. We will touch on it. And shout out to Danielle Moulton. We've had a conversation about this because I also saw her Instagram story about safety of dancers in the space, specifically in the category of stylistic athleticism. We'll touch on that. Okay, so from the top, this was a 3-3 judge panel, and this was up to the fan vote. So we have to remember that you had 3 of your judges vote for Royal and half of your judges vote for 1 mil, but not in the context of, oh, I like this team more. Based on how they scored the teams on the criteria, that's how close it was. So yes, it looks like 1 mil took more categories, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they, every single judge picked 1 mil for those categories, right? So I may have some differences of opinion here. I personally would give Royal the complexity score, but we'll have to touch on it here. It could just be the cleanliness affecting it. So the lean back, we have the columns on it is fun. We body roll, hit it through. Our cleanliness, we have a lot of dancers not fully executing some of our choices like bridge recovers. I notice it quite often. One of my dancers there was doing it. We're running through transitions. I think could absolutely be a little bit more creative, but I do have creative transitions of movement, but transitions and staging is more of my point here. So the accent it through, I like the partnering moment. The knock is fun. They do project very well. And then they knock with the knees, is great. We have opposing sides, end up rotating it around. And then we end up switching it up. The rock is great. Bump, bump, bump. That's also really fun. Now, something I do notice here is that Royal used original tracks in the sense of they didn't modify them or remix them aggressively like what 1 mil did. Do I think that helped 1 mil in musicality? Yes. It gave them enough of an edge, right? I also think that whenever you're dealing with music, there's certain expectations or there's certain saturations of perspective that already exists on those tracks. And that's where your judge panel's experience comes in, really. So if you see a panel and they have seen 15 variants of choreographies existing on a respective track, we're going to be conditioned and there's going to be predictable elements. There's going to be patterns that normally display on certain timbres, certain parts of your music that normally get hit. I really do think that could have potentially worked against Royal Family not having remixes in their tracks because it left open a window of opportunity for more musicality options and more creative moments through the usage of music and the content because it's a new presentation of the sound, but there was enough of a familiarity to recognize the track, right? So I think the remixes, because I said that exact point with Brotherhood, they use the modifications of the percussion for their NSYNC track to justify the styles that they were doing. I would say 1 mil that could have potentially helped them there because they ended up scoring a little bit more on the technique and authenticity. So we're going to be looking out for that whenever we get to that popping section specifically. So they did really good on consolidating it and expanding it out. They accent it through. And then the ball changes are really fun there. Then we have the heel twist. A lot of unison, but with more, with projection. Yeah, of course, projection. But they have a lot of unison, but they're using their transitions, like spreading it out, bringing it back in to create more variance. The body roll, we've seen that. They hinge it with the press is fun. And then they move. Then we have a small group join in. I like the levels with the legs. I liked that choice. That would, if we look for the athleticism, those types of risks I really like. Those are fun. Into the wave, and then they wave it to the side. We're clapping it. The accents in. And then we knock on the head. Bring it forward with the clap. And then we have the switch off on the feet. We rotate the arms. And we drop it through. Here it is. Kip up right here. I want us all to look at this particular kip up. I don't mean to, this isn't picking on people as a side note. We're going off of looking at things. It could be anybody. let's talk about that. That type of kip up, I'm going to be very honest, is a very dangerous way to do it, because if you notice where she's placing her weight, it's going to be pressing a lot of energy into the inside of the knees. That is not following the track of the anatomy of how your legs are supposed to work, right? It doesn't matter if you have a lot of flexibility there. It doesn't matter if you have a great range of motion there. If you choose to do a kip up with that kind of power and you choose to slam your weight, let's say hypothetically we ended up, really getting that arch going, that firstly messes with cleanliness, but secondly, whenever I say this, even when we do regular reviews, inverting like that for a power move like that is too much of a risk, especially whenever you're a minute in, or when you're dealing with stamina, or you're dealing with projection, or you're dealing with, you still have 2 more minutes to have to justify. So this is just like a note to those in the world. If you're like, how do I do a kip up? Follow the track of the feet. So whenever you're doing it, of course, it's about like the spring-like effect of it. It's about positioning and where you place your weight and the timing of the momentum that you give. But also, it's how you land it. Same with the bridge recovers. Having your feet out and your knees pressing forward and not following the track where your feet are going is you're asking to get hurt. So that's just my little note here. I wouldn't dock that personally, but that would affect the stylistic athleticism. And also the kip up doesn't really justify a style, which is another thing, is that how do the athletics or the physical things like the flips, are the flips in context to a culture and community? There are some flips in here that are cool, but I don't think actually help their score there as much. Now they have a whole point difference. I personally would have had it closer, but it could be the other transition things more so than like the kip ups or the flips specifically, if that makes sense. For me personally, they punch it. So I hope she's okay. I say that. There. So we have the arm swings to press it through. They rotate it around. They drop it out in. And then I like the levels here. We have a trio coming out here. We have a little group of 3 with some good speed change moments. I like the drop on that too. It's nice. They pick it up through, they rotate it, accent, great projection. So yeah, that's cool. We knock, but also notice that some of our moments, I think I clocked this during the live stream review, that some of our members have different torso execution, so it's going to affect your cleanliness. So that's different directions. We've already kind of entertained this staging choice. So notice here that we are giving up, like, yes, we have a pretty solid lower body. Is it squeaky clean? Not exactly. So that's why it feels like we're really diving into a ton of individuality. And I made this point where if you want to showcase individuality, you want to, have a really dope upper body or whatever, but the lower body needs to be crystal clear about what's going on, what's the rotation, what's the timing, what's the range, so we can see that you're intentionally being individual in the upper body and not just I'm getting lost in the adrenaline, because that can absolutely affect more categories than you think. And I really do think it did affect it. Now, they got lucky and the fan vote saved them. But I'm telling you right now, that tie was a solid tie, if you ask me. It could have gone to either team, for real. So they accent in, they bring it through, the arms go up. I like the direction on it. We drop it on the levels. I like the punch through on that. Not really punch, but we knock it. Notice, too, something that I do appreciate with 1 mil specifically is the fact with their features. Very rarely do they have the feature just isolate by themselves. You always have it as a trio or a duo. So the quantity, I think, absolutely will play a role in getting their score higher. I think that's great. Body rolls nice and we knock it. Number 21, I would say she's my example, just like in the context of with Royal. Who was our member? See, that's such a fun visual there. It was my member right here. Number 15, so freaking full, but can run the risk of those, especially that hang out in the corner sometimes or hanging out in the middle of the formation. They may not project as much. Now, how do you hide that? I know some people may be asking that because not everybody projects everything equally. I get that. It would be making sure that the mirror across from the individual who may be a bit weaker on the style. No, I'm not saying this person is, but I'm saying that if, these two, I'm not saying that they are, if these two were weaker in the style, then have them in a similar degree of competency mirror each other, so at least the formation and the staging of it is balanced, so it's easier to hide. Does that make sense? So that's my little main point there. So she's going so full. I do think, though, yes, they have projection, not by a large margin at all. I do think she's going so full, not everybody is matching her. So it leaves an area of opportunity. Personally, I love how full she's going though. We have the little crown moment there. It looks like they did make a moment, take some time to throw in some digs in towards Royal. Does that help creativity? No, I think it just helps the competitiveness of the circuit. So then we go into the popping. I like the drop down. That would be like a stylistic athleticism kind of choice. But let's look here. Yeah, that right there. Oh man, those are tough to justify. Not justify, but like tough to do correctly, because you're really you're one move away from slamming your entire body and your face on the floor. So hopefully everyone executed it okay. So now we're going into the popping section. We got waving. I already said my piece about this section because it has a lot of waving in it. They have good musicality here, so we'll give them that. It is not nearly as clean as it should be. I appreciate that we have this style. It's very clear that we're showcasing popping boogaloo, waving elements, isolation, some animation of it. I like that it's a group of 5 and not just one person doing it. That's fun. So I like the airtime here happening out of this. And then the punch is great, but of course range can absolutely improve across the board with so many groups that are happening in this set. Then they go into the head spring. Some of our members are falling out of it. Rotate it through. So that would be my thing. If you're choosing to do a kip up or you're choosing to do a head spring, we have the rule at my at my studio, but also in depending on, I'm certified with acrobatic arts, and that is the rule that they talk about in their curriculum, that in order to do a trick, you got to be able to do it 10 times in a row safely and correctly, because then whenever fatigue sets in, that's really what it's setting for, because everybody is going to encounter fatigue at different stages depending on what genres of movement you're choosing to justify and how conditioned your body is to handle it, especially the complexity and the density of it, right? So, going to the tricks and things like that, they're cool. Don't get me wrong. However, we're gonna mention what needs to be mentioned, that I would really focus on making sure you're consistent in executing the trick when you're fatigued, because then you're gonna have a higher success rate whenever you're on stage, because adrenaline's gonna drain you faster. Yeah, so we have here, that was fun. We got individuality. One of our members went the opposite way. It would have totally been fine if you had others on the other side mirror that. Unfortunately, everybody, went one direction. She unfortunately didn't. So this right here. So I like the ripple there. So the backflip, that was cool. What was the context of it? Not really in reference to anything that was happening. So that helps with performance, helps with projection, but it's not going to help in creativity. It's not going to help in complexity either. So I like the fullness there. He's a mighty guy right there, right? Number 25. Goodness. So we body roll with the snaky of the head, and we knock. Could be cleaner in the spacing there. The hops are cool. Then we rotate around. And then we drop up. Body roll. And then we have more body rolls. This remix section is a little bit interesting because we're adding a lot of really cool sounds. Is it combating more so than complementing? I don't know. I'm very curious about y'all's thoughts there on that. So they end up sending it in, we knock, we switch it, bring it through. I like the twinkling in. The bass is cool. We have more of a condensed formation. The body roll is really nice there. And we knock. I would say this is a cleaner section than what we've noticed in other parts. So I appreciate it because you're really able to see what's going on. The levels, the drop in the level was cool. The wave is nice. They push it up, drop down the level, and then we end up all looking. Notice that their heads focal point towards center. Right there, and I love that it is like we're about to do a crown, but nah, this is the 1 mil crown, baby! That was a fun finish, right? Okay, so looking at the scores for me, I would probably lean a smidgen more. I would say the complexity checks out. I think the staging, I would have leaned more to Royal, and I would have given Royal projection. But then again, that's the interesting thing, is that, I don't disagree, but I also don't, the difference in points would be different for me, if that makes sense. The athletics, I think the point difference should have been closer for me personally. Cleanliness, Royal for sure. Authenticity, I think Royal had a cleaner presentation, but a simpler structure. of the content, which could be part of the complexity thing. Um, I mean, all in all, this would have to be like, how would I actually know how I would score these? I'm not trained in the criteria. I just know enough about it. And I've reached out to Arnell and asked many, many questions for clarity on it. I can't decimal justify it. And I'm okay with that. I'm just picking categories. And if I'm able to justify it, then it's fine and I can make peace with it. But also, I'm an open mind, an open book on this too, where it literally, this was a match that if it was going to come down to a fan vote, I'm glad it was this one because each one took respective categories very well. I do think 1 Mil had better creativity on how they were interpreting the music, but I also think the music was more creatively remixed to where it allowed more opportunity to have creative content moments in comparison to Royal. But just remember, the judges do not judge in comparison. They judge the teams against the criteria, and the cards fall where they fall. Whew, okay, this one was really fun. I'm rooting for both teams, and I'm hopeful that we're able to continue to grow and elevate for finding more consistent strengths in some categories. Next matchup is Quick Style versus Jam Republic.
Yo, 1, 2. Me. Yo, Kenny. 1, 2. 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 Yo, 1, 2. Sur la piste de danse, la comme ça remonte tellement en piste de sang. Bon, les billes de sang, orgasme, le matérialisme, la ronde de chat, est adorable, le cannibalisme, mettons leur claque, je suis là pour la piste de danse, la comme ça remonte piste de sang, ma vie est con, les billes de sang, regarde le ZK, des capots, le match, la ronde de chat, est adorable, le cannibalisme. Yo, bitch.
Okay, Jam Republic. fun. Okay, so whenever we look at the list, shows that Quick Style, unfortunately, didn't get any category with the exception of Time for Musicality. Jam Republic ended up taking everything, which I would say for complexity, absolutely. For staging, yes. Cleanliness, yes. Creativity, that one we'll have to review, because I think the creativity came from the staging, specifically the transitions that they did, which normally Quick Style does very well. So I thought that was very interesting. Cleanliness, yes, absolutely. With spacing, they did a pretty decent job, Jam did, of their spacing. Projection was great. And they had the fan vote too. It was very interesting. Very interesting to see this one unfold. We're going to talk about both. Okay. And there's also something that I noticed with jams that we're going to talk about whenever we get to it. I think it's Miyabi's section. So the look to the side I thought was fun. They have the partnering. Neutralize. The placements are fun. The breath is nice. So a biggest area of opportunity for Quick Style is going to be their cleanliness. And the hard and unfortunate thing is whenever you don't have complexity, like overly polyrhythmic movement, and it's not clean, the point value can drop even more. Because people will associate complexity with more difficulty in justifying uncleanliness in comparison to more basic, simple movement. Now, does simple mean easy? Absolutely not. But complexity is different than simplicity, right? It's good to have both, but if you're being measured on complexity, you have to make sure that you supplement when you're choosing to be simple in movement. You got to be complex in layers, in the depth of the content that you're doing, the transitions, and things of the like. So the range can absolutely improve there. We have the marching happening with a little speed change moment there. I like the bounce on it. So I would say the creativity comes from the song choice and how they chose to interpret it. I think that makes sense for musicality as well. Whenever you have a creative song, how you choose to relate to it in movement, that can be something helpful there. Which could be, despite having more of a remix track with Jam, there was more of a predictable way in how you were interpreting it because of Usher and because of the influence of other artists towards Usher. Does that make sense? Anyway, we'll get to that when we get to it. You have this rebound moment out of it is fun. The bass happening is also fun. The head ISO, it's great. I like that they have isolations. I like the novelty of the choice that we just saw there with this partnering. I thought was fun, and then we passed it off. Well, let's look here. Something I noticed here is that some of our members, we do have mirroring in height, and I do think having mirrored height really helps with symmetry and balance. And you do see it with some teams, they do that pretty well. So with this team, that's a good opportunity. I do think they did put in the effort to do that, though. I like the opposing levels. The pulse is nice. Arms with the head is fun. The hop out of it is also really nice. You run it, you bring it up, the reset, the head ISO is nice. I love the performance facially there from 19. I thought that was great. Bring it to the front, we isolate, and then we do some shoulders, and we go GG. It looks like our formation over here is a little bit more consolidated, or a little bit more together, closer in proximity in comparison to the other side, but that was while they were doing the same thing. Yes, they're breaking off, but also the spacing's off here too. I think that was a big area of improvement for that. The head was fun. Pull it back. And then we have the different, I would say the pass-offs and features for the conversational element is really nice. Arm swings are fun. And then we end up sliding. This right here, that's a fun gimmick. We do end up seeing something similar to that in their New York set, so they may have to innovate that just a little bit because it does tie a little too similarly. They send it high, they bring it through, we switch it. I like the accent with that heel. And then we have the knock there, great levels. This little with this like machine gun like chest accent, I think super fun. The head is nice. They do a really good job with fun creative choices with the levels. I think it's great. The hops are nice on the and other people coming on stage is really nice. And then we switch it with the meltdown, head. We're bringing it back up, knock on the shoulder, good speed change. We lean it. So they do really good. What I'm noticing here with quick style is whenever you have part of your music that gives us these interruptions of these sounds that normally are harder to track on a track, like harder to, I don't know, find in a track like this, they're doing a very good job creating a unique spin on it in the sense of direction change or a transition, it gives them really fun creative transitions. So they knock it up, which is fun. They look to the inside, is great. They go, was fun. Volley roll is nice with the head knock. Then we have some of our members walking backwards and then transitioning through the direction change, and then we rotate it around. The wave is nice. Open it up. High mid with the drop. We switch it up on the arms, the hop. Then say the columns could be a smidgen cleaner there. We have that da-da. I saw the intention of that. The walkaways are fun. And then they transition it over with the drop down. It looks like, I think, was she supposed to go with her column, or is she the new feature of the section? I'm going to go as she's supposed to go with her column. So then I like that we're being intentional with how we're getting off stage. Not basket running there. We knock. Then we have this pull away. We do have a repeat of our type of arm positioning with our feature pulls, but I really do like how we're interacting in that way. And then we all create, more of a legato, individualized transition to get to the next section. We've noticed that a couple of times, so that could be an area of opportunity, specifically in the transitions, to grow and for creativity. I think that worked against them there. Taps of the toes are nice. I like the hop out of that. Looks great, too. The runs are also fun. The pull in with the drop down is great. The hop with the direction transition. We turn it all the way around. We could clean it up just a little bit there. The pony is fun. That's a really nice way of getting your dancers on stage. And then they end up knocking it forward. It does look like a basket run, if I'm being honest. But because we had the timing of the ponies, that absolutely, we're going to give them a pass for it. Great intensity, great projection. I think the difference between that technique and authenticity, you could see the isolations, and you can see, I would say that you would give the popping elements, boogalooing elements, animation elements, but not like each respective style, but that genre of movement preference you can see. It just doesn't have a lot of clarity in the cleanliness of the group projection of it, and I like that we've shifted the tone differently here compared to other quick style stuff we've seen, which I really appreciate. The pickup is nice. I do wish we had more dancers helping and surrounding and creating more environmental choices to it's polyrhythm through delegation. I think that could have helped their complexity score a lot by not having so many isolated groups. Projection forward is nice. They send it away. The hops are fun. The ball change is nice with the head. It's just a cleanliness thing, but they're projecting pretty decently. But because this is kind of a plateau-like presentation, meaning that we're not given, outside of that outlier, we're not given a lot of highs and lows and supplementing and complexity and density and shifts in our percussion and that kind of stuff, that it will affect how it projects overall, and I really do think that contributed to the score here. I would say the stamina worked well because they did handle it pretty well for beginning to end. It doesn't look like we faltered in our cleanliness comparison to the beginning to now, as well as how we're choosing to present our perspective of like how extroverted is our movement here at the tail end too, compared to the beginning. It's pretty similar, but because of the things, like I said, like simplicity, this is more complex. I would say there's more of unison, more people trying to justify it. We rotate it. The knocks are fun with the rebounds. The direction changes are cool, and they go dee-dee. The peace sign I thought was really cute. And then they did a pretty good job. Do I think that we took a step in a direction where we're diving into a song and we weren't able to clean as effectively as I think we need to? That would be a big area of opportunity for quick style, is going to be the cleanliness side. Because as these teams get more familiar with how they're going to project and how to focus on what categories they want, especially as seasons go on, that's going to be an area that everyone's going to be working on, is that cleanliness. Okay, so from the top here, it did make me choke up just a baby bit when I saw our captain at near the end, because it was his first time to be able to perform on stage, even though he was supposed to be on the roster at least, 3 times, right? Oh, man. So already, really nice projection there. And the accent is really nice, good levels. We have a lot of density. We're going high-low. The type of track I think really helps with more percussive discoveries. I like the hop on it. But notice it's very... It's giving, like the Michael era of movement, which is why I don't think of it as a Jam Republic creative endeavor, which is what I gave the warning in which I did. If you're trying to embody somebody else, then that shows that we're not showcasing a creative perspective of ourselves with that individual. We may be on the respective track, but not in the movement itself. We're not innovating it or varying it enough. We're creating a fun nuance because we know it's a crowd pleaser, if that makes sense. It's safe, which is what they said. It's something that it's reliable, which reliability means you're risking creativity points by having a reliable set, if I'm being honest. So we wave it with a level, subtle change. We accent, we heel with it, they wave it around. The kickball changes nice with the knee slide. Great transition. That is pretty athletic, being able to do that without an assistant of the arms. Really nice there. And we end up running with the walk-off. I appreciate that we're back on tempo here. And then we have a feature. It's really fun. Look, it's a girl! And then they go speed change. Some of our choices in our torsos are a little bit off. I wonder if that was the intention of having more individualized. I'm not sure. But everybody's trying to match on the head. Hinge around. I'm going to now assume that everybody was supposed to be the same, because if you're going to hinge like that, the range... you all have to have a similar starting point to do that. And I think by having the same torso direction would be really nice. So we're hitting on her. We got the glide with the body roll. We turn out of it. Partner moment. We turn. Now, do I think that their jerseys and modifying them by, wrapping a hair bow around it to make it tighter, did it affect their cleanliness as much here? I don't think so. I think it absolutely did in the New York series, but I don't think it messed with it as much in this particular set. From what I'm noticing and with the kind of content it is. And then we send it around, good tension with the body roll. And then we have it, I think our spacing can improve over on the stage right side there compared to the stage left. And then we separate, arms press out. And then we rotate, sending it behind. The points are nice. It looks like I don't know if we're trying to go Campbell locking. We have some of our twirl rotations that are similar to what we've seen there. The ball change, you don't know what it is. Levels are fun. And then it goes with a tap, tap, tap on the toe, and then we reset it to the front. Rotate. The range is pretty decent there. I think before we got to that, it was a little bit off, but spacing just a smidge off right here. But you can still see the dynamic. Mighty fine. They did more than enough to win out against Quick Style because of their density. I really do think complexity and having they were cleaner. They had really clear styles that they were justifying, like the whacking, a Knox fun. And then I like that now we got Denzel separated. Now my guy right there stood in place, which I kind of find to be risky. But he's matching feet. I do think he could have absolutely picked his feet up a little bit more, and I think it would have been easier to sell it. But he did pretty good. I didn't catch it till now, and it's at 0.6. Here we go, Denzel whacking section. This is where they're getting that technique and authenticity justified. So we accent, it's polyrhythmic through different arm ranges and how we're expanding it. Really fun there. They drop it through. They sending it back. Also really nice. Great. Nice little signature moment from Denzel. Then we do a little overhead variant on it. And I like that everybody environmentally contributed. I thought this looks so much better as a wide cam than what we saw from the live stream. I love it with the turn, with the accent in. He 1,000% helped contribute to that technique and authenticity score for sure. And everybody projected very well. And they present out in. Spacing could adjust slightly, especially in that second half there. And then I like the hand performance on it. Really nice. Now, I think we end up having an interesting lighting cue happen here. So if you didn't know, the teams have zero control over the lighting. That is up to production, IDL production. And what I noticed here is this is the first team out of the series that we've watched where there is a section of their set where the lighting, I personally think, enhanced what they were doing in their staging and their content. It made you focus on the dynamic that they were doing, and I think it assisted it. So I come from the D-League world where the teams, I believe, get to set their lighting. They get to choose what to do with the spotlights and all the different things like that. I don't know if IDL wants to give the reins over to the teams yet for that, but I think that would be a really cool component to elevate the performance in a staging way, in my humble opinion. But that's we are going to pick our battles, and that's fine. But I'm saying, do I think that that's something that enhanced musicality and enhanced staging, and it's either coincidence? I would say yeah, it worked very well, right? Because you see how the light saturates, like there. Does that make sense? It gave a whole full flush spotlight. I love that everybody matched it very well. The heads are nice there, and then we ripple it out. We pull it up is really nice. We drag through. Come on, that is so freaking low. My goodness. And then we rotate around. So I like that we have this transition happening in the back that is using your quantity of dancers nicely. And then we hit out, put it forward, fun positioning, looking pretty decent so far. And then we go hair right there. And I like that she finishes out on her own little feature moment, but she's not by herself for too long. And then she does a little figure eight with her head. And now other members are trying to get with her. And then there's Julian de Guzman there. Arms swing up. And then we push it forward. I think Julian is somebody who does the MJ aesthetic. He turns into a little onto the toes. I thought that was fun. And then we go into a back kickflip. That helps with your fans. I don't think that actually helps in the stylistic athleticism, personally. That can help with projection possibly, but I would say that is a trick example of I don't think would have counted towards any of the categories with your judges. I could be wrong, but I know I probably wouldn't count it because there wasn't a stylistic reasoning for it. It was just for levels. So we bring it forward. We have a unison section. We drop it down. We send it back. We turn. The hop is nice. Then we do a pas de bourrée. We hop, send it through. We have opposition of directions. We wrist rotation. Send it up. We got our clumps happening. I would say this clump's a little bit closer and this was more spread out. Then we go into a round up. Back tuck. That's cool, but once again, same note. What is that in context to? What community, what traditions, what style we're justifying with it? And the wagging overheads. Very nice. Denzel's got his whole moment. We basket ran. I'm clocking it right now. Uh-oh. Oh, man. That bites. But that was the only time they did it, though. But that would be a note. That was a missed transition opportunity for creativity. So we knock. I like the speed change on it. It's cool. And then we end up sending it out to the front. You have that O. And then we get it low. Come on, cannon. Dynamic now as everyone is all together in a unison. We wave it for a fun transition there. But now we consolidate, making it a little bit more of a dense formation. We have somebody drop a level, and then we drop. I do think he could have stayed up and then drop low. That would have been more of a clear finish, but also didn't do enough to pass. Obviously, they did because we saw them in round 2. And there was somebody who asked that with some of the teams, did they, was their strategy to do their more difficult and more complex routine first in order to get into the championship point round? I would say some people's strategies are that. And then also you have people who have the strategy of we're calibrating routines that are very specific to another team. And then we're going to bring one that has nothing to do with the team, but has to do with the concept or has to do with a theme that we can really enhance those categories off of. So that would be more the Brotherhood style, where that would be that range. But I would say Jam has, this one I would say is more difficult than the one that they brought for the finals of this particular series. But all in all, I think these were really fun. I'm looking forward to seeing what Quickstyle adjusts. I hope that we have more cleanliness with them, but also I do believe we have 2 months off after Sydney compared to just a month going into LA. I think, nope, it's Seoul, going into Seoul, because Seoul will be in August, and then you have much more prepping for September. So I do believe that there'll be a lot of working on these things post-Sydney, I would believe. But this was a really fun matchup. Okay, the spiciest matchup of the series, Brotherhood versus GRV. We're going to take a watch.
Hold up, stop the music! Stop the motherfucking music!
Okay, and GRV.
But let me know. We are enemies. We are foes. Yeah, hey, how my demons look. Now that my pockets full. How my demons look. Now that you put your shit. Yeah, how my demons look. Pockets full. How my demons look. I am on the bigger things. Just bought a limousine. You live like me in your dreams. I would never let you in my VIP. We are enemies. We are foes. Who are you? And what are those? You are gross. Opposite, got you playing with your nose. Yeah, hey, how my demons look. Pockets full. How my demons look. Now that you put your shit. I'm a puppet, I'm a sheep, I'm a cash cow. I'm the fastest growing bitch on your apps now. You are tired of me cause I'm on your ass now. You are mad at me cause I am all they slap now. I'm a peanut yeah. Hey, penis,
Okay, so I know so many of you have the question, do the digs and the burns count on the criteria? No, they don't. They don't. Not in the way that you think. So, we're going to talk about, overview with Brotherhoods. We know that they referenced the 2010 Body Rock set that involved John Ha, things of the like, and other choreographies from members on the GRV roster. The judges are not obligated to know that. Do some of the judges know? Good chance, especially if, they've judged Vibe before, or they've been in the Vibe circuit. I know Cheyenne has heavy ties to Vibe. Arnell does, but Arnell wasn't judging. So my point, though, is it goes back to what I had said about an earlier match in this recording, that just because the audience picks up on it or just because the other teams pick up on it doesn't mean the judges have to. And it doesn't mean that the judge isn't doing their job if they don't see that, right? The judges, I would say, the better scope to look at it pertains to the IDL circuit. So whenever you see GRV set, you see certain things that Brotherhood has done that you've seen done in the IDL circuit specifically. So a judge will most likely clock those things a higher percentage of clocking that in comparison to a more niche generational burn, as Clay had put it. Now, with both of those cases, what they were judged on in terms of creativity, GRV didn't receive their creativity score because they did better burns. It has to do with how, if you remove the burns, how were the formations, how creative were the movements themselves, how creative were the prop usage, if you have them and they're within the rules, the usage of your accessories like the mask, right? So all that to say, the creativity score doesn't come across in the same way with burns, like the burns help the fans. Does that make sense? It can help with projection and elevating the projection score because there's a certain like receiving that happens that the audience can feel. But I wanted to kind of clear that because I know I had that question. If you watched the live stream with me, that was my big question, is how do the burns cater into the criteria if they do? The answer is not as much as people think. So we want to go ahead and move on from there. I'm so glad that I'm able to like confidently say that because shout out to Arnell for always being such a helpful aid in helping me understand the criteria, so much more there. And also we are going to talk about gravity is going to come up in the conversation, specifically with GRV set. You guys have an idea already if you know who Gravity is. This is going to be great. I told him I'd do a super shout out of him. I talked to a lot of people about this matchup before I watched the live view, which is what we're doing here, so I could be more equipped to how to approach this. So when it comes to cleanliness, I do a pretty good job of that. It does look like that we got to keep the original music here. It is interesting how IDL is not collabed on it, nor have they released it on their channel. So part of me believes there could be there is a partial blocking that's happening on this video, not a full block, or we wouldn't be seeing it. Partial block, and it may be restricted in some countries, enough to where IDL themselves are like, we can't publish this. And so Brotherhood has published this. So if you're like, Jess, where did you find this? It's on Brotherhood's channel, but not if IDL doesn't have it. But this very beginning, notice that you have this boxer bounce, which caters to that ding ding, like the ring of the bell to get started in a boxing match, which I thought was really fun. So doing a boxer bounce really helps with that. So I like this trick moment here. Into the backflip was cool. So we have the L for loser. So we acted, they're very clean, expanding the formation very well. They knock it. I like the press it through it. So if you notice, they have a ton of complexity in this beginning, which I think helps in how they can, the more complex you set up your beginning, a lot of times gives you more wiggle room to supplement with more simple stuff later. But it does make it harder on your stamina and on your projection at the end. Especially if you started complexly, a lot of times if you book in with a similar dynamic and you project it similarly, that can help on your stamina side. So that's the risk on it, right? Everything kind of complements in a certain way. So I like the subtlety there on that. Yeah, they get back great on the dynamic to do a very good job when they're going subtle. They're using a dynamic like this, dynamic of a feature knocking, in order to create a fun, captivating visual that's creative to the respective track that properly supplements the simple choice, right? This is really nice. So we knock, and then we rotate around through. The points are great, sending it through, and then we end up rippling it out, and then we kick it. I like the wave on that, and then we're walking. Then it goes get back, great on the projection shift, where we're going subtle to so freaking full. More full than you normally see the move executed, right? That would be, what is it? I see a lot of people do this. This is what? There's the Cabbage Patch, and then, was it the Reebok? One of those. Anyway, so we knock it away. So now they've hit it, send it, and then they are dancing all the way off the stage, which is great. You have your groups go through. Also, side note, I like the fact that Brotherhood did this. I hope IDL takes notes if they can get access to this. That's the tricky thing, is you don't know. So Scott choreographed that first section. Super fun. Love to see it. Adrian choreographed the second section. Third is Kelvin, then Adrian, Michael Deleva, and Alo Gelato, Scott Forsyth, and then Adrian again. So Adrian has a heavy hand in this, which is really cool. And Scott too. Scott did the bookends, which honestly I think is very smart if you think about it, because Scott knows the kind of degree of physicality that he has ensued on the members in the beginning. So having him, nope, Adrian did the tail end, but Scott did it about right here. Okay, cool. So I take back what I said, but I would say the point is, I mean, having a sense of familiarity with what you've already established helps being able to branch out even more. They present it out. I like the toss around is cool. And then we're going off of the words, so we're syncopating off of that. So it's fun. Musicality choice. And then you have subtlety, like we're about to do. It's not a dab, but not even a milli rock either. It's just a blend of the in-between. We isolate it. I like the timing of that, where some of our members are stopping and place at a certain moment, which I actually really like because it goes into a trio, which is also really nice there too. And then we end up doing a switch off. So that moment, because they were so clean and clear and readable, it was really clear to see when people were breaking off. All right, so you have more members coming in. That right there, I'm seeing what you're doing. That is the most structured basket run I have ever seen, because you're dealing with timings. They're swimming high-low, and then notice that they're sinking into the da-da-da-da section there. Birds of a feather. That is so fun. And also shout out to Eli. Eli was the first person on a team with IDL to ever send me a message saying that he appreciated my reviews, and it really meant a lot. So I wanted to give him a special shout out. Birds of a feather, my guy. You did great. This looks really nice to see. It's really fun. Also, his mom's really cool too, but she had like the sweetest message about brotherhood and about Eli too. So that's life though. They drop it down, it's fun. I want to give her a shout out too because she was really nice. So we end up knocking. The high five moment's cool. The level drop was nice. Something I'm noticing is you do have some similar features in the front, but then you also have new features like Eli. Eli I don't think was featured in New York, but he was here. And I think there's others too. And I think that's a really fun component that I think enhances the group as a whole synergy-wise, is that you put any member in the front, even though, like for an example with Eli, he wasn't the choreographer, but he was the feature moment in that, and there's others that helps justify that too. You have your familiar faces, and then you have new faces that come in. I think that helps with creating different tones and different ways that the team can be shown, and it gives everybody the true chance to be in the spotlight too. Now, this move here, it is a head slide. That move in particular, I have seen, if you are a studio dancer and you compete and you have seen the teen or senior division in conventions in the past 2-3 years, you're going to see this move on specifically in a bridge, and then they do a head slide over. So this one it's fun how it gives like an ostrich hiding its head in the sand vibe, and then they lift one of the legs over, so it is subtly different than what I'm normally used to seeing. But the head slide, I am very conditioned to seeing. Not on a track like this, but just in general. I think it's fun. I like the pull through and the personality. The face was great. I like the roll on that is fun. I like the reversal going back up with the leg. We bring it in with a kick out is fun. It looks like we're doing Campbell locking because of the points and the particular positioning. If you saw it, like all that, that's a very interesting way of trying to justify Campbell locking, was usage of that level. That's kind of cool. This right here is really fun. I love the fullness. Who moves at number 9 is not standing out in a way that is compromising how the overall look of the section looks. That is very good. I think this is it's a really great progress point compared to New York. I really like the Billy bounce there. They have subtlety. So they're doing so much of a textbook example of going really loud and really soft, and using those loud and soft moments to create simple and complex switches, which I think helps in the complexity score immensely. And then press it over, you have that get back, and we toss it away. You don't know me like that, with the head is nice. And you have the flick of the hands. The pot of beret moment is nice. And then they bring it in, look it to the front, tossing it down. That Harlem is nice, and then we hop, that always gives me that little Stray Kids, do, that intensity, which is fun. But I don't think they got it from there. Yeah, they have they're chopping it up, and they're throwing it away. It's cool. Tossing it forward. I think spacing is a little bit off over there on that side. Tossing it through. And I would say Brotherhood's a fantastic example of, a team that has really, like, they're some of the cleanest that we've seen, consistently clean, compared to, like, other teams that we're seeing in the league right now. But it doesn't equate to spacing, right? I think spacing can contribute to creating a nice clarity of your choices of your staging. But I would say spacing helps more on the staging justification in comparison to, I would say, cleanliness. But all of them can go hand in hand if you think about it. Nice. So I love the speed change on that. I love the personality of that. We have that shing. And you have the running position, and they're running off as well. They accent, they drop it down, and then they push it. This right here, this is a Kenneth member feature here. Because you saw Kenneth do the biting tag and clock it, which I love the fact that GRV's paying attention to where they're like, excuse me? And for me, I would feel flattered a little bit, but also I'll be like, nah, we ain't doing that. I'm going to clock it and almost show you what's up, which is exactly what we saw. So there is also, some people have asked, can they do this? I would say, because Clay did ask, yes, you can. Specifically, when you look at the deduction sheet, it shows that it's only pertaining to an IDL routine. You cannot reuse choreography, whether it's your own choreo or a choreography of another team's. So technically, GRV wrote a finer line on that deduction than Brotherhood did. Because like I said, is it the judge's responsibility to know about every single competition circuit that these teams have gone through? No, that's not possible, right? And I also would bet you, for me, I have years of D-League experience of a portfolio of an entire circuit of professional dance that a lot of people in the fans and possibly on the panel don't know about. And the same can also be true with a panel knows about circuits that I have no idea about. That's my point, is that we can't hold them to the same standard of, okay, oh, they did this, they pulled this from Kenneth. Kenneth can clock it, but the judges don't have to. And that shouldn't influence the score too much anyway, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? I will say, I was able to clock that they had a GRV posture of presentation that was different than what they normally bring, especially for the get out of your mind section, which I think contributed to creativity of projection and how they chose to present themselves, but not creativity because they took the set and they used it to their own advantage. Does that make sense? That's kind of like my main point in that. So you have that BRV, love that. I will say that would low-key work if they were doing a dig at Royal, because Royal Family back in 2012 did something like that with the crowns, with the purple and the yellow. So, and that right there, this absolutely gives Royal Family dig right here, if you think about it. It kind of feels like both Brotherhood and GRV dug at Royal. Anyway, yeah, if you didn't know that, go clock 2012. They did a style like that. So I saw Royal more than GRV there, but I love how they did the BRV to supplement that. The toss is really cool. The knock is also nice. They send it around. Love that. They send it high. The knock it is cool. The slam, I absolutely love that. Because there's a way in how they're doing it to where he can easily get back up. And it's like the safest body slam I've ever seen. Right? So then it looks like we're hinging, or we're trying to justify a subtle crump posture here because of the woes and the jab sequences. And then we end up knock is cool. We punch it out, dropping it low. We send it. I will be surprised if Brotherhood does not bring crump to LA. I really think they're going to bring popping. They're going to bring Campbell locking, and they're going to be crump. That's going to be my guess. I'm going to say it right now. Whether or not they watch this, maybe they will. I don't know. But anyway, do you have that mother? We go back tucks. And then he back tucked and somebody tucked underneath him. What? Hold on. Oh, we slid. I think Scott did. Scott slid. Goodness. So they bring it up, bring it in. This is where the get out of your mind comes into play. They punch it, bringing it through, accent it in. The punches are fun. The air time there with the positioning hold, highly commend that. And then it's like he uses his neck like you're done, and he throws it off like a grenade. That's cool. They also remixed the get out of your mind. Yeah, the get out of your mind with a look. I would say some of us didn't look over. I do wish everybody did, but that's fine. They drop it down. Not quite super clean. The opening of the section was, which is cool. So if anybody's like, oh my gosh, if John's like, who took it? Scott put it in. Because he's claiming, I put in the get out of your mind section. I'm seeing it. And then they build it back. It's really fun. Get it out of your mind with the head. Then it goes into a Dougie, nice and subtle. So this is the big thing. I'm personally not going to touch on like the nuances of how they did it in XYZ. I feel like they cover it. IDL covers it on Instagram. Like you can look at many places for it. I'm touching on, does that count towards creativity? I would say no. I think the remix of the track, how they chose to create a GRV posture, right? I think that contributed, but I also think they loopholed in the rules to where that they used choreography, but they also didn't use more than 2 8 counts of it either. Here's your Dougie, spacing a little bit off over on the side, and they're gonna get through. Then you have some of our timings just a smidgen off there. That little focus is nice, and you have Let's Freaking Lose It, and then we syncopate it going back to the tail, and you got Adrian on the outro. I think that's Adrian in the front if I'm thinking correctly. I like to get out of your mind with that swing of the leg, and the head is also really fun there. And then a nice isolation, good, intense. They have complexity here at the end, which, what did I say? Complexity in the beginning and the end. You run the risk of not looking as, it's easier to become fatigued by that because you're dealing with complex movements and you're having to go just as full as you did in the beginning, and I think they do a good job. Spacing just a smidgen off, but they transition it pretty good. Columns are fun. They overhead, they pull it back, and then they reverse it. They walk it. I love me a good walk transition. And then I like how we're being playful on that, where it's triggering what everybody else is doing. And also as a side note, going back to the quick style matchup with Jam Republic, I noticed that quick style does a lot of initiation similar to that, but they separate from the group more so than actually being in the center of it or within the group itself. So hopefully that makes sense, my little note there. I'm curious about if that affects the kind of creativity, because it's easier to see what the nuance of the feature is doing compared to having to be split between the group and the feature. I'm wondering if that's a component to readability of those choices. The knockdown is nice. They knock this little moment there. That's fun. They drop it low. And they rotate it with the clap. It's nice. The head into an Afro butterfly. They knock it nice and full. And then they knock with the head. And then they finish with a fun, not GRV, but with a fun Brotherhood finish. Now, I'm going to say this on the record here. I had a lot of people saying, like giving reasons as to why Brotherhood scored lower at this series compared to New York, which I would say I understand the reasons. Some reasons were because the turnaround time was significantly less than New York, as well as, you know, the creativity density. There's more fatigue in play. I would lean more that direction if we were at the 4th location, but because this is the 2nd location, I think a lot of teams, Jam Republic being an example too, they already prepped 4 routines before even coming to New York, right? I will tell you, multiple teams have prepped multiple tracks because they got to get their tracks approved, right? And which really sucks with Brotherhood is that they really try to figure out what they want to do and find tracks and get them sent off. And then they're the ones that have the short end of the stick on their music, which is crazy work, right? And Scott on the podcast that they have, he touched on that, which was very interesting. I lean more in the camp of what I had mentioned before we even watched the live stream of Vancouver. And I said it in New York as well when we touched on that. The scoring is more so of the panel calibrating to the criteria, not because the teams actually performed subpar in comparison to New York. I still believe that the scoring was a bit too generous in New York, and that's okay. I think within the context of how the teams were scored was still accurate despite the inflated scores. That's okay. But now tying into here, yes, I see that it's not as clean. Yes, I also see that some of our choices, they're not as competitive in the athletic, like stylistic athleticism or other components like that, but it's still very competitive. They have incredible scores for being consistent and this being, you know, they're using significantly more routines in their roster compared to every other team. So if we're talking specifically about what this routine scored the highest in out of all the routines, was cleanliness. This scored higher than the 2nd round, which makes sense. The technique and authenticity, that was surprising to me. but it's not by a large margin that they scored higher here than in the other place. Their spacing, they scored higher here than they did. Nope, that was Royal Family, sorry. Royal Family got the highest score in spacing. Projection and stamina, they're the only team that got a perfect score in that. I would say that it's fantastic stamina and fantastic projection for sure. I 1,000% agree. Even in the chill sections, there was still a captivation, and they were projecting of it because they were switching their dynamics so much that helped supplement for that captivation element, and it read and it pushed past the stage. Okay, GRV's set time. So like I had mentioned, GRV was really out of the two teams, the one that rode the risk of actually receiving a deduction for reusing choreography, specifically Brotherhood's choreography. But I don't think they were deducted. I'm going to be very honest. Part of me thinks that GRV made this routine for Royal Family, not for Brotherhood. Because there are a lot of digs to Royal because of the structure of the dance, more so than to Brotherhood. I wonder if they ended up picking this set because they were going up against Brotherhood because of Brotherhood's Doja Cat track that they selected in New York. I'm curious. I don't know. But that's going to be my little hypothesis here. If you're on GRV and you want to verify, that'll be cool. But also, you do end up seeing Brotherhood embedded choices. Like, in this one from the inaugural event and a couple other things too, but we'll touch on that in a second. We are enemies, so they are absolutely allowed to have masks on because it doesn't impact the integrity of the jersey. The heads on the side, the arm with the accent is really fun. The Z set is cool, and then they pulse it with the knee. Sorry, not with the knee, with the elbow. I like the in the back, and then they end up doing its kip up. Those were fun. And then we have these shaking moments. That's not really equated to any style, but it's more of a dynamic. We get low. You have that yeah. You have the A. How my demons look. Now, we are 24 seconds in, and pretty much leading up to this point has been pretty simple. That can help on stamina and projection to a degree, but also you're already giving opportunity to Brotherhood on the complexity side. We have to ramp up the complexity density. But also keep in mind, they weren't too far off on complexity. I think they just had bigger differences. Like, they had more time to exist in the land of simple before pressing into the complex, but they had both. But it was just a different timeline when they chose to do it. So the rocks, they did very well there. And then they have that pelvic thrust. They thread it through. They accent through. All of this, like even here, it gives the impression of a crown. Even the repetition of the pulses and their choices in their pulses give a very similar case to how Royal Family projects. So we speed change. We drop it low. So now GRV received a higher creativity score. I think part of it does come across because of the mask. They are a higher risk too on cleanliness because it's a contrasting color compared to their logo on the back. Arm slings, that's a Royal Family dig. Like, truly. Because I've seen Royal Family do that. And then they speed change around. That we've seen Brotherhood do. We drop it down. Then they all do a fun mask reveal. And then we end up accenting low high. That's really fun. And then we walk. And then I like that we have this opposition. Good speed change. We walk it through, head. And then this pulsing going on. I do appreciate that we're not neglecting those that are in the environment there. And then we have good tension on the tail end of that. That's great. We get it low. The accent there with the chest is fun. And then you have that yes you do. That's really fun. Great moment there with your feature number 21. The 21s are doing great. They have two 21s that are killing it. That bridge recover is really nice. Then you have the good tension with the switch off in torsos. You have that we are foes. That right there, that's giving gnarly. Now this is our dab run. Yeah, that caters over to Brotherhood there. We switch it off. What are those? We switch it through. I like the speed change here. Now somebody said that they were replicating the pulse moment of the straps of the IDL New York Brotherhood set. I just consider it like a fun speed change. I think it's really fun. And then we have the flick of the feet. And then we body roll through. That's your nose. And they had the dirt. That was fun. And then they drop it low. And they accent through. And then they do a nice little bridge recover. And then we knock. This to me gives significantly more I mean, we can consider it more of like a Kenneth perspective, which I would say we lean up more there. This, once again, this gives more royal family because they've done these sequences or dynamics before, right? And also, let me say this too. If they did not make this routine for royal and then they supplemented for Brotherhood because of the song, I really do think if they put this up against royal, I think they would have done very well. Now, a lot of people are like, well, duh, Jess, because when you look at the scores, they scored higher naturally. Yes, I know they scored higher, but I'm saying when it comes to the burn level, this burn's pretty aggressive to royal, if I'm being honest. Just like Brotherhood had a couple burns to royal, too. Even though it was directed to GRV. So I wonder if teams are creating disses and burns and sequences to help workshop against teams, and then they kind of supplement or they convert them based on the circumstance of who they're against and the location and the things that happened during the season. I'm going to kind of lean that direction. I'm curious about it. So we flick it, we rotate it through is also nice. We accent this right here. I love that. Also that little pulse right there, that reminds me of Quick Style. Yeah, GRV's targeting everybody. They get high, low. I like the pulse here. Notice how we drop out in our music. Now, they're doing step. We're going to end up seeing that. Step is very percussive. It's known for the absence of music. It's known for using your body as the instrument. So I actually appreciate the fact that we've dropped out the music to give that impression. And then knock, we have complexity here in the small group, and everybody else is, environmentally contributing. Hit it through. Do I think it's more on the simple side? On the step, yes, it does give the impression that we're doing it more to justify the style in comparison to living within the space of it. Yeah, all that, it's fun. And it also, it's not technically only 2 8 counts. We did a couple counts of it before, but did it project in a realm outside of we're justifying a style? Personally, I don't think so. But also it could be I'm limited in my exposure to step culture. I've looked at a lot of material and a lot of reference material, and I live close to step culture, but it doesn't inherently mean that I'm fluent in it, right? So I'm very curious about y'all's thoughts, especially if you're an individual who is a practitioner in the step community. I would love to hear your thoughts on this section. And get connected. And then you have the pull through, and then of course here's the tie into our moment of the robot from the inaugural section. Sends us through into, we are off on the dip. The dip we're doing pretty decent, but I'm saying that we were off on the sound to initiate it. It could just be timing and circumstance, that's fine. Whenever we walk, so I already talked to Gravity Jacobs about this. Super shout out to Gravity. We had a conversation. I have, the wide cams were out at this point, but I just asked his thoughts, and he had mentioned what he noticed was the lack of hips and level utilization for the catwalk transition, which is what you see here. And I would say this is a textbook example of if you have one member who has really good foundation for a respective style, you have to make sure that everybody does. Like, everybody commits to it. Because if you remember what Arnell said in the podcast episode, which I highly recommend that you watch, especially if you want to understand the criteria better, please go watch that. It's on the IDL channel. He mentions everybody who you choose to put in a section has to be able to justify it and teleport me there to that culture, to that community. Does this look like a Vogue section that unfortunately is just trying to satisfy some key elements for the sake of style justification? Personally, it does, but that doesn't downplay the effort. Like, I appreciate the effort, but there's some really big opportunities that they left with this and with the step section that I believe Brotherhood did take advantage of. So they rotate it through. We have the hand performance, and it looks like we're doing a shimmy variant going in. It's not even like a full-on duck walk. We do knees on it. We drop it down. Hand performance is fun. We have the spin, which is fun, and they bring it in, and we isolate it, and then we go into the split, and you have the gong sound, of course, and then they present it out. I think the columns could be a little bit cleaner out of that. And then we go here, because we're going to a really big, Afro bag, this is another symptom of which I was like, this gives royal. And that's okay, and you guys are probably like, Jess, you keep saying that. Yeah, because it really does feel like this was a royal family disc set that they converted to a Brotherhood set. Now, that could just be me, and it could just be a hot take, and I think that's okay. But also, because of my experience of what I've been exposed to, do the judges, like I said, do the judges have to know the backgrounds of the disses? No. Does it help in providing clarity, or could it lead to a disconnect with the set? I would say yeah, to a degree. I mean, I think for me, back in 2013, when you had like Keel Tootin on Royal, they would do whacking and mix with a smidge of Vogue, which now it's really good to separate just in general, but like they would do whacking in that feminine posture for that style. So if we were trying to dig at a team, that would be a good style to try to dig at them with. But also, I don't know if it was very successful. Even here, it's a bit simple. Our choices and the knock, that guada guada, I'm going to be honest, I'm not believing it on some of our members because we don't have a groove. We don't have an actual like stylized communal texture perspective on it. It just looks like movement, which is unfortunate. Bring it through. But can I just say, the fact is, despite the constructive feedback I'm giving on the Vogue and on the Afro, on the piano, Afro beat sections, it's still a heck of a close score, though, if I'm being honest. But the styles that we're seeing, though, those would be areas to really hone in on whoever you choose to put in that section. They have to know what they're doing. Especially when you got a lot of people. You can only hide so many people, right? So they do a little cartwheel, and then they drop to the ground. I also wish we had more key elements shown in the Vogue section as well. So this prop usage was really well done with the red, and I do think the bases were really well done on the small group, and then we have the legs accent in, bringing it through. And I like that everybody's joining through. Then they go into the whoa. What does that remind me of? It reminds me of Brotherhood's set about the comments from, was it 5? Yeah, that one is a really, really fun one. I think it's my roommate's favorite set of theirs. But yeah, this bass with the whoa is absolutely a Brotherhood note. And then they go bring it through. And they bring it out in. And then they have it through. And then they're using the strap to wipe their tears. I think that's so charismatic, so captivating. That's great. Here we go, nice and full, good tension out of it. Press it forward. I think that's Kayla, right? She's one of the captains. I think the team as a whole, held it down with her very, very well on the projection, where she had a really fun back hinge moment, but that didn't take away from the hinge range choice to where we could see the individuality, but it was still clean. I really liked that. So we accent, we clap it, we drop it low high. We got heavy complexity on the tail end, which is really nice. That's good. Good body roll. They reset it, travel it up with the knock of the head, and then they press it forward. And then I like the isolation reset to the front. We take it on the head, and then the accent high-low, and then they get it low, hinge it, let's go. Great fullness. And then they end up going with a fun lingering finish without music. That was really cool. I like the remix choice with the percussion happening on the tail end of it. So all in all, I think I personally would have leaned, GRV had a structure that was competitive. I think they left a lot of areas of opportunity on the styles they specifically were choosing to justify. But if you look at the score sheet, the stylistic athleticism was the same across both of them, which that absolutely makes sense. I do like how the complexity versus staging versus musicality versus creativity. I do see the creativity of the usage of the masks and how we're getting in and out of our choices. Like the staging creativity absolutely makes sense. I would probably also, let me see. The spacing was really close between the two. There wasn't one that really stood out over the other. Both were pretty clean. I think with some of the sections of the staging and formations, there was a lot of captivating cleanliness moments of Brotherhood, so it was easier to cite that it was a notable quality, which could explain the point difference. Let me see. With the technique and authenticity, I really do think the gap pertains to the things that I had mentioned. And that's fine. Like, that's that topic that I just discussed specifically with the Vogue and the Afro dance hall on a piano, like social dance scene space. it's not a new conversation that I've had, especially whenever you look at HHI routines as much as I've had to do and as much as I do. That is such a specific criteria that has to be justified, or you lose a lot of points on that circuit, which is why I'm technically I'm like very sensitive to formats of composition of choreographies whenever they do incorporate a specific section that has a style to justify. And I know that with Vogue specifically, there's a lot of sensitivity around proper representation of it choreographically in a competition space. And so we've had that conversation whenever we looked at Royal Family with WDCC, right? So that's why I'm like, I have many thoughts, and of course all of them are open-minded, and I would love to hear everybody's thoughts, and I'd love to hear from GRV too, if you guys are like, you know what, we actually made this through with Brotherhood, and we never noticed that there was a lot of Royal Family nuances, or maybe it was the opposite. I think that's fine. It was still a very competitive routine. You can't take that away from them. I also heard from a lot of you that you don't like the format of GRV and Brotherhood. They had the 2 highest scores of the night, but only Brotherhood moved on to top 3. I'm going to be very honest. I like that component, but it's also because I'm from the D-League pool of circuit where everybody's really good. And sometimes the best routines that go in the night go up against each other. I'm conditioned and I'm used to that because if you think about it, that's part of the strategy of if GRV had a more competitive routine that was in the second round, they could have used that in the first round, but they chose to use this one. You know what I mean? Because there were more personal digs of Brotherhood that they calibrated towards the team they were against, just like Brotherhood using the routine that they did against GRV. It made more sense to go up against GRV with that routine in comparison to having it in the second round. That's part of the strategy of it. So I don't mind the fact that, yes, GRV had the second highest score of the whole night, but they didn't pass on. It's because of the choice that they made. And also remember from New York, who had a really high score, 1 million. They would have passed if they were against low-key any other team in New York, but they were against 2, Brotherhood. So I have another hypothesis to throw out. Maybe I wonder if whatever team is going up against Brotherhood, are they going to be the team that tends to have the second highest score of the night? Maybe. Or the highest score if they end up beating Brotherhood. Does that make sense? Because then the same can also be true. What if GRV won? Then that's just how the cards are, you know. Brotherhood finally gets a break, but you know what I mean? I think that's kind of where I'm landing on when it comes to that perspective of, oh, I wish the GRV passed. This isn't HHI. This isn't World of Dance. This isn't everyone's against each other. It's a bracket style, and these teams have to be strategic on which routines they bring. They ran a risk, and unfortunately, they didn't win. However, they could win fans, and there's a good chance that they can calibrate their routines more strategically against their other opponents to where they have a higher chance of making it to the final round of the respective series. So, but yeah, this one took a lot longer, but I know this was the matchup that a lot of us wanted to really dive into. And I talked a lot more on the criteria specifics with this one because there was new things that happened here that have not happened in IDL yet. And it made me really happy to enjoy. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any comments or anything to contribute to the discussion, please feel free to share in the comments. I am always open-minded to hearing new information, and I really like being able to see these teams strive for success. I'm really proud of all these teams. I'm so proud of Brotherhood, GRV, Jam Republic, Quickstyle, 1 Million, and Royal Family. Just the fact that they are continuing to grow, they're continuing to cultivate. It is so hard to do this with the amount of people and the amount of time that you're given to do it. So everything that I say, yes, can be constructive, but also there's so much love behind it where I want them to succeed and I want the league to succeed and I want the fans, I want you guys to be able to enjoy what you're watching so much more and really be able to invest in it too. So I'm Jess and I will catch you guys on the flip side. Bye.